Hello and welcome to She Made Me Play. My name is Pure Blue Octopus, and today she made me play Atelier Iris Eternal Mana. Warning, today's podcast may contain spoilers. It will contain spoilers, and it might also contain some naughty language. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to She Made Me Play. This is Calissa speaking, and joining me as always, well, as you already heard, is the blue octopus to... Well, crap, I couldn't think of anything good. Hey, what's up, Pure?
Barrel!
That's actually a big staple in this series. But
Barrel!
This is the, well, I haven't played the other older ones in a while, but it's the only one I can remember in a long time where actually doing stuff with the barrels gives you stuff.
Barrel!
Whenever you got a new party member, did you try to see if they would do a barrel?
Absolutely, yes. I noticed all the different barrels. I don't have the skill to recreate them all here, but they were definitely noticeable.
And as you guys heard, yeah, barrel. That's the game we played. No, just kidding. We played Atelier Iris Eternal Mana. It was released in North America in June 2005. It was actually the fifth Atelier game created, but the first one to release in the United States. And it was the first one I ever played. In the Iris saga, that was the first out of 3 games. Generally, in the Atelier series, they usually have a trilogy of types, even though the main character is different in each game. And you guys can tweet if I'm incorrect, but all the games I have played in the Atelier series was that way.
So, you say this is the 5th one that ever came out?
Yes.
But the first in the US?
Yes, first in the US.
Were the other ones on PS2, PS1?
The ones that were released in the US or the older ones?
The older ones that were released in Japan.
I'm not 100% sure. I should have looked that up.
Okay, I would just be curious to what an Atelier game would look like on like a, Super Nintendo or something like that.
Oh, true. But yeah, since then, there's actually been 21 Atelier games total.
Sweet Jesus.
And like I said, they're kind of released in a trilogy of sorts. Even though you do not play the same character in each game, past characters in those trilogy quote-unquote series of the games usually make appearances in all the 3 games. Generally as a mentor type character, a passing by character, but in a lot of cases also as a playable party member that helps the new protagonists along with their story. So, this was one of the very few Atelier games that had a male protagonist. How did you feel about that?
Well, I've seen you play all the Atelier games, and I thought, oh, wow, these are all these, cute kind of Lolita girls. This looks like fun for me. But then I got this one, and he was just some random dude. It was fine, though. He was just fine. He was capital F fine.
Well, lucky for you, the next Atelier game in the series, the sequel to this one, has a male protagonist as well.
Fantastic.
Speaking of characters, Lita, I guess you could say the main female protagonist in the series, she pulled off a female tie pretty well.
Yeah, Lita was pretty cool.
Yeah, her outfit was, it wasn't as bright and as fluffy as the newer Atelier game females in it, but I dug the tie.
Yeah, I definitely liked the characters in this game, especially Lita and the cat girl.
Norn.
Norn, yeah, I like those 2 the most.
Meow. Of course you named the female characters.
Yeah, well, they were my favorite. The male characters were pretty generic, I would say, is the most charitable way I can describe them. Very stereotypical, like anime brooding guys.
I don't think they were brooding. You think Delsis was brooding?
A little bit. What about the other guy?
Arlen?
Arlen. Yeah, he was definitely brooding.
He was definitely brooding.
Yeah, he was like the exact same character from Tales of Berseria, which we just played 2 episodes ago.
But I guess Delsis was like the generic, like, flirts with everything that walks male character in anime tropes.
Sure. But Arlen, who is the Dark Reaper guy in Tales of Berseria that we just played?
Aizen,
yeah. So like Aizen and Arlen are like 90% the same person.
I'd have to disagree, and I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this will disagree as well. But to each their own.
Yeah, I just think the characters are pretty generic.
So, what did you think of the graphics? I thought the graphics aged pretty well. Unlike Kryn, the last game we played, I was actually pretty excited when I turned it on.
So, first of all, don't poop on Kryn. But yeah, I love the graphics in this game. This game I was so happy to see that 95% of this game was all 2D, which is absolutely phenomenal. I love high quality 2D graphics, and I hadn't experienced too many PlayStation 2 games that use 2D graphics, because that was when people were really starting to try to use 3D exclusively. But this game looked absolutely fantastic. I loved the way the graphics looked. I found the perspective to be a little bit confusing at times. But overall, I thought it was just absolutely gorgeous. The characters, the portraits, the hand-drawn backgrounds, everything looked great. The only parts that weren't great were the 3D parts, when you got to like the overworld map and things like that.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think the 2D graphics, like you mentioned, the hand-drawn backdrops and things like that, the world was just bright and pretty, I think.
Absolutely. So I played this on my Android tablet using Damon PS2 Pro, and it worked pretty well. I had a bunch of random crashes and things like that, but I generally would have to turn off a bunch of emulator settings to get past a certain part, which would make it really slow, and then I turn them back on after. But overall, I was able to play it, but the emulation did hamper my enjoyment. How was your experience? What did you use again?
I used the PS2 emulator for the PC, and I don't...
Is that PCSX2?
Yes. And I don't recall having many issues at all. I think it only really crashed once. But as you saw, I couldn't get it to go to 4K per se. I think it did 1080. But other than that, I didn't have any issues. There was no lag. There was no, stuttering or anything like that. It played very well.
Okay. As far as upscaling in general, I mean, I'm obviously an emulation expert, and I don't know how much experience you have with them. Only the 3D parts will get upscaled, like to look sharper. Any of the 2D parts will just be scaled larger and maybe blurred a little bit. So in this game, you're not going to really benefit from any kind of higher resolution like you would in a 3D game for PS2.
Yeah, I ended up having to play it it wasn't technically a little window, but obviously it didn't blow up to my full monitor size, but it was okay. It was fine. I mean, I do have a 40-inch monitor right in my face, so I guess even, a bit of a box screen is fine.
You should tweet out a picture of your setup, because it's pretty insane.
Hey, our friend in WoW has a bigger monitor than me, remember?
That's true. What's he got, 43?
43, I think, but it's curved.
And don't poop on Champions of Kryn, because in previous podcasts,
delayed response,
I have said I want to beat Tales of Berseria and I want to beat Mass Effect before we continue on with those series.
But which game did you beat first?
I actually beat was Champions of Kryn. I went through and I finished it. It took me only about 45 hours. But that game's just really well designed, solid design.
No. But first of all, you did not beat it as is. You used mods to make it playable.
Yes. I used Gold Box. Oh my gosh, I can't forget what it's called. Gold Box Companion, which definitely helped a lot of things. And when we return to Death Knights of Kryn, I will help set you up with Gold Box Companion.
Yay. But as always, we're getting a little sidetracked. This isn't about Kryn. You can post about all this crap because I don't want to listen to it anyways. So I know one thing you really, really hate, and it's pretty notorious in JRPGs, is tutorials halfway or later in the game. Well, these tutorials were very, very special.
Oh my god.
What did you think of the cutesy, silly tutorials?
Okay. So, as I've expressed earlier on earlier podcasts, I hate being introduced new mechanics throughout the game. And this one was obviously, there was tons of new mechanics coming up, but this game was different. And I'll get into what was different about this game a little bit later, but I didn't mind the tutorials. I thought the tutorials were cute. I thought they were funny. I liked the fact that, like in other games, like in Final Fantasy, it would just pop up a text box saying, oh, this is how you're going to use this thing. And just go through several screens. In this, it was fully voiced. It had charisma. It had guest stars in every single one. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't, maybe really enjoyed is too strong. I did not hate the tutorials, and I did not hate the fact that new mechanics kept being introduced.
Yeah, especially because how this game worked with the mana and how it helped you progress. Because in the world itself, it felt a little like an action RPG-y in the small sense that you had to use the mana to progress in certain parts of the maps.
Yeah, I definitely found that interesting. I don't want to get too far into the core things I feel about this game yet. But one of the things you mentioned is, traversal. And the traversal brings into something else which I was thinking about. So talking about the manas reminds me of the traversal. And one of the issues I had with this game is that everything is really, really small. Everything feels like very claustrophobic. All the areas which you have to traverse are tiny. Now in this game, for those of you who haven't played it, there's an overworld, which is strange, and I'll get into that later. But then there are these zones where it's all hand-drawn. The overworld's kind of 3D. And in the zones, they're all super tiny. I mean, probably only a couple of screens wide. So you'll see these things like, oh, I need something to get through here. Like I'll need a step, or I'll need to be able to destroy a block or something like that. And those are abilities that you're going to get. But it's not like you're going very far. You're just going like one more screen. So that was really difficult for me because everything was so claustrophobic. The town was the same way. The first town you start in Kovac?
Yeah, Kovac.
Is that what I was pronouncing? Kovac is only like 2 screens wide, maybe 3, as it scrolls a little bit and then has these divisions. It's like, wow, it's so small. Everything felt small to me. Traversal mechanics didn't really help that because I could see where I wanted to go, but I just needed a special ability.
Yeah, talking first about the overworld map and then the 2D maps, that's actually that's something that most Atelier games do, where you have a general overworld kind of 3D-ish map, and then you have to travel to certain points to go to different zones. So you'll see that a lot when we start playing, more of the Atelier games. I have not played the most recent one, but I know there was one a few years back that didn't do that. It was just kind of open world, and you progress zone to zone through, no overworld map. So that'll be interesting when we get to that. And I don't know the most recent one if that still does that or not.
So the question I have with the overworld map is, and I just don't understand the design, it's like you'll have very limited places you can go. And then once a place is unlocked, it'll just make a path there, which didn't exist before. And I really don't like the fact that, so it looks like everything's forested, right? And there will be a path from Kovac to one of the places you want to go. And you can't really go anywhere else. And then when you've unlocked a new destination, there will just be another path. It doesn't make any sense to me. In other games, the path would still be there, but there would be a story reason why you couldn't go there. There would be monsters, or there would be a gate or something like that. In this, the path just doesn't exist until it's time to go there.
Well, if you use your imagination, maybe you're lost in the woods and you just, there's a path here. And that's why it becomes uncovered. Duh.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. A game which we're going to cover in the future, one that I played, Hyperdimension Neptunia, has, instead of this overworld map, it just has dots on a map, and you just travel from dot to dot. So it just gets rid of the dynamic of walking around the overworld, which is kind of pointless.
Yeah, some of the later Atelier games do it that way too.
Where it's just a map and you just go to the different...
Yeah, just a map and you go dot to dot.
That seems a lot better than the method you have here. I'm guessing they wanted to show off the amazing 3D capabilities of the PS2. because it was 3D in the world map and it looked terrible. Definitely the worst looking part in the game, but I'm sure back then I would have thought it was cool too, as we are just starting to see 3D graphics.
Yep. Well, I have to agree with that, and I don't agree with much from what you say, but, whatever. So, what did, going a little away from the graphics and the map, what did you think of the story?
Okay. Let's see how I can phrase this in a way that I have never, in my entire gaming career, played a game so long and felt like I had done so little. I can't believe how much time is wasted in this game.
You backtrack a lot in this game.
Oh my God, I wanted to pull my fucking hair out. Just to give an example for our listeners, okay? There's this one part where you find these evil guys, like in the church, and they want to recruit you. And they're like, oh, we want to really recruit you to our team. And you're like, nah, fuck off. And they're like, now we're really mad. And your character's like, oh, I better run and hide, leave the city. So you just leave the city and then you do one thing. And then your character's like, oh, I guess it's okay to go back. And I'm like, wait, that was literally 15 minutes ago. I figured I was going to go adventure all over the world and maybe come back someday or see them later. And I fucking come back right away and everything's fine.
Yeah, this game does not do a good job of, I'm guessing that was take into consideration how quote unquote long in-game time was walking from, the original city to the new town. But it doesn't do a great or any job explaining that. So that's what I thought. I'm like, well, it must have taken a few weeks or month maybe to travel to this seaside. I don't know.
An even more egregious example was I was told to go into the sewer and eliminate a ghost, right? So I walked down to the sewer, which of course is 2 screens of sewer. There's no exploration here because you can almost see everything as soon as you walk in. I go in and it's the ghost that I already know.
Pamela.
So I'm like, oh, hey, Pamela, it's a friendly ghost. And she's like, yeah, I'm the friendly ghost. I'm like, okay. She's like, bye. And I leave the sewer. And then I go into the bar and I have a 2-sentence conversation. And then they tell me to go back to the sewer. Like, what? What kind of insanity is this? And it was not like it was different people. It was the same people I was in the sewer with. They could have said it in the sewer and then I wouldn't have had to go back and forth.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that a bit too in the game. And I knew when that happened that it would drive you batshit crazy.
I can see the look on your face. The look on your face is like, I have no defense.
No, I have none. But, you mentioned Pamela, and I'm thinking Beryl. Pamela is actually another recurring character in the whole overall Atelier series. She's in many, many games, either as a ghost or not, but she's always kind of the same ditzy character.
Fair enough. I didn't hate her character. I thought as a ditzy friendly ghost was an innovative type of character.
Another returning character in almost all the Atelier games is the blacksmith Hagel. And sadly, in all the games, he still has not grown any hair. And it's like a recurring joke in almost all the games.
So, in addition to that, I think that the biggest problem I had was with the story was just that, number one, backtracking constantly for no reason. And like I said, just one sentence and then you have to do it again. But more so than that, Final Fantasy VI was guilty of this too. But I felt a lot of times I was trying to trigger the next event and I didn't know where to go. I was glad it even had the advice thing, what to do.
I agree. Yeah, funny enough, I didn't remember as much of this game as Final Fantasy VI. Don't know why, but there was a lot of parts in this game. It's like one particular when you leave Kavik to get away from the knights that are chasing you, and you go do that quest for Delcius. It's like, go to the forest. I'm like, okay, which forest? Oh, okay, there's one forest. I'm looking around. I'm like, there's nothing here. So I explored pretty much every area I had ever been looking for this stupid grass. And it's like, oh, the ladder, you could barely see. The grass is in the tree. That makes no, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. I found myself wandering around trying to guess what the game wanted me to do, and it really bothered me. I actually had a related problem to that, where I found the tree the first time I went to the forest, and I went up that ladder, and it's like, I got whatever was there, but the quest item wasn't there then. The quest items only appear after you have the quest. I get it, but when you're going to a place that you've already been and there's like no chance to know that, like if maybe I had seen the type of grass there or something like that ahead of time before I got the request, so I'd know to go back, but I had to randomly explore to find that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just weird too, because at least that I know in the more current Atelier games, each zone is notorious for certain collectible items for your alchemy. And this game, that was just random. And I know they mentioned it story-wise where, oh, this doesn't normally grow here. It's miraculous that we found it here. It was a big cop-out to do it that way.
Yeah, I was definitely not a big fan of the story direction. Even more so than Final Fantasy VI, which I also had a lot of problems with.
And I thought replaying this game was interesting too, because even though the story was freaking ridiculous, and you could tell that they knew it was ridiculous, and they joked a lot about how ridiculous the story was, like the captain of the guard, like trying to do the evil laugh and then coffin, trope type thing. This game, to me, for an Atelier game, did not focus as much on the item creation as the newer games do. I feel like this tried to focus more on the ridiculous story.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. Because one of the reasons where I felt like I didn't get very far in this game, because I've seen you play Atelier before, and it looks like you're doing work. Like you've got all these windows open and you're creating shit. And I created shit, but not very much compared to what I've seen you do in newer Atelier games.
Yeah, in newer Atelier games, it's a lot different. They don't have like this mana thing where to create items in this game, you just need certain elements. That doesn't exist in the newer Atelier games. You actually have to farm materials. Like the 90% of the newer Atelier games, you go to a zone and you farm the shit out of that zone and try to get as many materials as you can, so then you can go back to your Atelier and create materials, create items to progress. And it's to the point even where the shops are kind of useless in the newer Atelier games because everything is created. Your armor, your weapons, you don't really buy that stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of looking for. But I kept thinking, oh, I guess it's going to happen like, right around the corner. Oh, I guess it's going to happen like right around the corner. And I got to my 10 hours and I was like, okay, I'm fucking done with this. And I didn't ever have that time where I had to create a lot, or I felt like there was, I couldn't create a lot because I just couldn't hold that many.
Yeah, this game, like I said, this game didn't focus as much as the creation element of the Atelier games as the other ones did. It was kind of just like a little nod to it, almost. The newer Atelier games, they get really complicated with the item creation. And obviously, when we get that far, you'll see more. I haven't even scratched the surface on some of the insane things you have to do to get the best items in the games in the newer Atelier stuff, because you need like a certain item with a certain trait that melds into this certain item with a certain trait, and then you take that item and then do it again, and yeah, it's really freaking complicated.
It sounds absolutely fantastic.
I know you'll love it. I can't wait. And speaking of kind of differences, this game only has weapons and accessories that you can equip. In the other Atelier games, you actually have weapons and armor that you create yourself, and accessories too.
I definitely noticed that, but I've played a bunch of games where it's like that, where you have very limited number of slots to equip things.
Yeah, I've played that too. It was weird too for the merchant kind of thing where you create items for them and put it on menus. Now, other Atelier games have done that as well. And depending on what you put in the menu, you would see different conversations in town of them talking about, oh, the smelly drink from blah, blah, blah bar, which I found kind of amusing. But the thing that kind of stayed in the newer Atelier games is certain vendors, I guess you would say, have their own kind of reputation with you. And the more you do for them, the more you talk to them, the better relationship you will get with them. And that may change the ending. And I don't remember if this game did that as well. But in the later Atelier games, there's tons of different ending sequences you can see depending on how much the people around you like you.
Oh, that's kind of interesting. Do they like go back and visit all the like secondary and tertiary characters and have like a little blurb about them?
Yeah, kind of. Blurb or not really a blurb like Fire Emblem Three Houses type thing. It's more like a small little cutscene or something having to do with it.
Oh, interesting. I really like that in Fire Emblem Three Houses. And also, Suikoden did a really good job with that. Or is it Suikoden? And I do like that when I see it in different games. So it's always nice to see. Now, I made a bunch of stuff with the shopkeeper, the guy at the bar, and I put it on the menu. I didn't notice anything happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you walk around in town, you can see conversations from people that talk about the items.
I definitely never noticed that.
I'm surprised you made things for him and not the cute little girl in the magic shop.
I actually never really understood what to do at the magic shop. I did not know you could synthesize things there. For some reason, I guess I thought the synthesis was only a thing in the bar.
No, if you the more you synthesize with her, the more she warms up to you, and it unlocks different cutscenes between you, her, and Lita.
I definitely never had a clue that that was even a thing.
Well, now you know. So if you want to continue playing, you can go do that. It sounds like you want to really continue on.
There is no way in hell.
So speaking of characters, I know you mentioned you recognized it, but replaying it, I recognized a lot of the voice actors in this game. To name a few, Delsis was voiced by Crispin Freeman. He's actually well known for Winston in Overwatch, and he's been in tons of anime and video games.
Yeah, he does a ton of work.
And of course, Arlen, voiced by Stephen Bloom. Anime fans will recognize his voice instantly because he was Spike in Cowboy Bebop. And I Want to Kill Your Dick guy from that game you played, I guess.
From Bulletstorm.
Yeah, there you go. The girl said that to him, but yeah, anyway.
Yes. And also, the dwarf in Dragon Age.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. No?
No, yeah. Yeah, the first dwarf. Not Varric. I forget his name.
Yeah, you're right,
Anyways,
though. I forget his name as well.
In
yeah.
the first Dragon Age. Yeah.
Beggar was voiced by Jameson Price. He was actually the voice actor for Nemesis in Fire Emblem Three Houses and Bane from World of Warcraft. And Zeldalia, the old woman, Norn's mentor, she played Vash from World of Warcraft, and she was also in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I know you mentioned it, but who did Lita voice?
Gosh, I forget now.
I think you said she was in Neptunia, didn't you?
Oh, yes. That's right. I can't believe it. I forgot. Yeah, she was Blanc in Hyperdimension Neptunia, which is on our list. Because I love Hyperdimension Neptunia, and I'm going to get Calissa here to love Hyperdimension.
I'm sure I'll like it.
Because it's so much better than this.
Yeah. It'll be so much better than Crin, so whatever.
Hey.
So what did you think overall with the voice acting?
I really enjoyed the voice acting. There are lots of things in this game which I absolutely loved. I loved the voice acting. I think everyone did a great job. I really liked their interactions. I mean, it was obvious that some of the shopkeepers and things like that were not as good actors as the main cast. But I thought Klein and Lita and Arlen and Delsius, I thought they all did a really good job. Norn, I mean, the main cast was really engrossing. And I found myself looking forward to the points where I would get like more continuous story, because that was my favorite parts. It was listening to them talk. Minor gripe, but I did not like the fact that you had to keep pushing the button to advance the dialogue. Because normally I just kind of sit back and just take it in and let it flow. But having to push the button made it kind of awkwardly pause, and it stifled the flow of the narrative.
Wasn't most Weren't most PlayStation 2 games like that where you had to press the button, though?
Yeah, I think it's a relic from when you actually had to read it, but obviously in this, you didn't have to read it.
Yeah, it was fully voiced. Yeah. Which, I really appreciated, especially because my current problem with the Atelier games is they are not being voiced. So...
Well, they're not being voiced in English.
Yeah, they're not being voiced in English. And I know I'm going to get a lot of angry fans like, the original Japanese is better, dubbed is poopy. But, dub has come a long way. And I really like listening to people in native English. And from what I know and from what I learned, the Atelier games, as you can probably tell, is a very small niche audience. So they wanted to save money. So the last few games being that have been released have not been voiced at all in English. It's been just the original Japanese voice.
Wow, if they did that to Hyperdimension Neptunia, I would have a fit. Because the voice acting is the reason to play those games. And I would say it's probably the reason to play this game. By far the best part is the story, the humor, all really well done. I mean, to get back to the voice acting, talking about those tutorials, just the fact that he says that it's his fourth wall breaking tutorial, I thought that was great. I love it's, very Deadpool-esque when people break the fourth wall on purpose. And then having the guests, the characters and acting was fantastic.
Yeah, it was definitely cutesy funny in some parts. I mean, some parts to me were kind of lame, but you kind of get used to the lame.
Wait. How would you not like something that's lame? You're like steeped in lameness. You love lame things.
Steeped in lameness? The hell are you talking about?
That's like your whole shtick is the lame stuff.
Okay, anyways. So, what did you think of the music?
The music was quite good. It was kind of forgettable, but I definitely appreciated that you'd get different tracks in different areas, and it always just fit. Overall sounded quite good.
I really like the intro music before you start the game. The Atelier series has been known to have music pieces with bits of vocals in it. And whenever those play, I always found those really enchanting and almost kind of have a mystical feeling to it. And I always really, really enjoyed it. Besides the main start screen, you hear it. There was a part when you're traveling in Iris's grave, when you put the mana on the pedestals to unlock the door. And when you went in the door, you kind of heard that music there too. And I always really like music like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so dumb. I have this really vivid memory of the first time ever hearing vocals in a video game soundtrack, and it blew my mind. It wasn't this, of course. It was TurboGrafx 16 CD games. But yeah, I definitely vividly remember that. And now it's much more common, but back then it was definitely rare and it was always nice to hear.
Yeah, I definitely like it. And I've always really liked the Atelier music. I have to disagree that I think it's more memorable than obviously you do. But obviously, as the series progresses, it gets better too. So what was your overall impression of the game in its entirety?
Okay. This is something I've struggled with. And I've been thinking about how to phrase this. I wanted to love this game so much. I really, really wanted to love it. I love the art style. The art is perfect. I mean, I can almost, if the game looked like this today and was released, I would not discount the art style at all. I think the art was fantastic. I loved the voice acting. I liked the silly story. It all came together in a really cohesive way. And something we haven't talked about, I really enjoyed the combat. The combat in this was, let me see how I can describe it. It was more interesting than Final Fantasy VI and less chaotic than Berseria, but it was still quick to get it over with. I definitely enjoyed the combat. It was one of my favorite parts to grind. I liked using the mana to get extra attacks so I could grind higher. Okay, so I like the combat. I like the story. I like the artwork. I love the artwork. I hated everything else. I absolutely hated everything else. I hated the traversal. I hated the claustrophobic zones. That was probably my biggest thing, is that the forest was like 2 screens. I don't understand. How is that a forest? The tomb was like 3 screens. The town was 2.5. everything seemed really small and tight and deserted. The town only had like 6 people in it. Everything seemed really, really empty. Another example, I went to the theater before I was supposed to, and it was empty. There was nobody there. There was nobody there to say, hey, this is the theater. We're not having a show right now, but maybe check back later. Like every other game in history. There were so many places that there was just nothing to do, and there were so few characters. At one point, you go to like an encampment. In the encampment, there's like 2 people. Everything was so empty. The fishing village. How many people live in this village? 3? I mean, everything just seemed...
And that was just one screen.
Yeah, and it was like, yeah, that's exactly...
In one house.
Yeah. There was the dude by the fire, there was the docks, and there was a house with an old man and a save point. Like, it just doesn't make any... It didn't have... I guess the biggest thing I would say is
it didn't feel alive.
Yes. I think they failed at the world building big time. Comparing this to Final Fantasy VI, right? Because Final Fantasy VI was many years before this. But Final Fantasy VI had so much more cohesive world. Many towns felt alive. There were people there. I mean, it doesn't take that much effort. They could have just copy and pasted the same characters. But obviously, they didn't want to make the towns bigger because then that would have required more artwork and they would have had to put more things. Everything just seemed so small, combined with the really strange overworld traversal where there was so few different destinations. Like, it wasn't, like in Final Fantasy where there were many towns you could go to and that type of thing. There was like Kovac, and then there was the fishing village, and then there was the tomb. But every single one, when you got there, they were all tiny. So that you had this direct line traversal combined with these tiny areas. The whole game felt really super claustrophobic to me. I think that's the biggest impression I had, was I kept wanting to zoom out, or I kept wanting to be able to explore more. I felt like this game, out of definitely all the games I have played on the podcast, but maybe out of all the games I have ever played, this game let me play the game the least. Now, the cutscenes were good, but when I actually got to the gameplay, there was no beef because there was no big dungeon to explore, right? There was no big town to interact with people. There was no big farming area. There wasn't that much content besides the cutscenes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And you don't have to worry because that changes later on in the series. Not the next one, probably. I don't remember much about that one, but... Yeah, I agree, which is weird too, because the Atelier series that people know nowadays, it has pretty big maps with a lot of stuff in it that you have to go and find, because that is the base of the game, finding materials and creating new things.
I mean, this is the exact opposite of that. When you talk about big maps, this game has... some of the smallest maps I've ever seen in a video game.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Which you're right. When you compare it to Final Fantasy VI, the maps there were much bigger. Now, granted, the maps there were also confusing in some parts that we talked about, but this had the same thing. There was times when I was trying to get some elements from an item, and I couldn't move my character the direction I wanted to just to get the element. And it just felt weird and a little broken.
Absolutely. I had the exact same experience. And especially in the lightning generators, I wanted to extract the elements out of them. But
I got shocked a lot.
And that had to do with the weird isometric perspective that it felt like a flat isometric. So it was really difficult to tell where things were in 3D space. And there was some, like an Escher painting or something like that. There were some things which I thought they connected and they didn't, or I didn't realize that one thing was behind another. The exact same problem I had in Final Fantasy VI in a lot of the zones was here. It wasn't as bad here, but it definitely was noticeable. And I absolutely had trouble touching things or getting close enough to things without touching them.
Yeah, I definitely got electrocuted a lot in that part too. And then when I was hesitant and didn't want to get electrocuted, I would always miss it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're too far apart and you try and do the thing and it's like, it doesn't do anything. And then you step one step closer and you get electrocuted.
Yeah, definitely.
So what did you think of it overall?
I mean, it was interesting to go back and play it. I have to say, I didn't like it as much as I felt like I would or should. Because this was the first Atelier game I ever played, so I had kind of rose-colored fond memories of it. I agree. The voice acting cast was amazing, and it was really fun to go back and play it because when I played it the first time, I didn't know who these people were. And go back and play it the second time, I'm like, oh my God, I recognize this person. He played this. And then I look it up, I'm like, oh my God, he played this too. And that was really fun for me. I thought the overall story was even a little more lame to me than... It was weird. The whole the second they said world domination, I'm like, oh, facepalm. It was...
What are you talking about? This is all in your wheelhouse. This is the type
I know,
of thing
which
you
is
love
weird.
the most.
I like lame, I know. But there were parts in this game that were even too lame for me. And that felt really weird.
They weren't too lame for me, which is weird.
That's even weirder, I know. But the game was making fun of itself. So, I mean, I understood that as well. A lot of the game was kind of making fun of the ridiculousness of it. And, obviously there were some parts in the story that now, as I'm older, I look back on, I'm like, Lita, honey, you're a really good looking girl. You're moving in with the first young guy in town you meet.
Yeah.
That's a little weird. And then you invite Delsis in the house. And then Arlen and Norn. I mean... had fun times, I guess, but
Yeah, her pining over Klein was really silly.
It was a little awkward. I mean, her jealousy bouts were like, where did this come from all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's definitely felt like it was just put in there just because the designers thought it would be funny, but it doesn't even ring true. I think that was one of the only parts of the story which I really thought was silly.
Yeah, their whole dynamic was really weird to me. Obviously, this time I played because I was paying attention more to the story. I was, it came out in 2005. I wasn't that old then. Well, I guess I was pretty old.
You were
it doesn't
an adult
matter.
in 2005.
But back then, yeah, but I'm more mature now, okay? But anyways, yeah, it's just their whole relationships felt a little weird. I mean, even Klein wanted to be like, oh my God, we have to save Lita. I'm like, you've known her for a week. I know she's attractive. I know you're probably a teenage boy because it is, a JRPG here. I get it. You're probably going for puberty. But still, you're going to risk everything to save this girl you barely know who was kind of a bitch to you when you first met and quite a bitch to you for quite a while. And now she's a jealous, kind of... It was just a little weird.
I definitely agree. But I still thought the story was cute.
The story was cute, and I really loved the fourth wall tutorial stuff. I really loved all the characters. I would have to say that even myself... I will keep it as fond memories. I'm fairly confident I'm not going to continue playing it.
Yeah, by the way, if it wasn't clear, there is no way in hell that I am playing any more of this. But this brings us back to a very interesting comparison, because in our last two games, we have both played the first game in a series, right? And both games that we remember fondly from when we were significantly younger. Obviously, Champions of Krynn, I was younger than when you played this. I was 13 when I played Champions of Krynn. But that was the first Dungeons & Dragons game that I've ever played on PC. And looking back on it, it 100% held up.
I disagree.
And apparently, this one, 100%... Well, you didn't play Champions of Krynn in 1995.
I was smart then. And I was 9.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
And I didn't have a computer.
But yeah, so my game held up, whereas yours did not.
I wouldn't say that it didn't hold up per se. It was enjoyable. It was enjoyable for the bit I played. I just, I don't know. It held up in some areas. It's tough. It's really tough.
So thinking about that, I would say this is the worst one. And I would say by a significant margin.
Oh no, Krynn was the worst one.
So with Krynn, if you can get past the graphics...
I would rather... No. I would rather play this game 10 times over than have an even glance at Krynn. I deleted that from my computer the second I hit my 10 hours.
And just so you know, folks, Krynn was only 5 megabytes.
Yeah, I deleted it. I didn't even want it glaring at me on my screen. Which we both agreed that 10 hours is the minimum to play for this podcast. And we said that if we wanted to, we can continue and do more and talk about it. There was no fucking way I was playing more than 10 hours of Krynn. I was looking at my timer and I didn't even play 1 second more. It was 10 hours. I was done.
Yeah, I played about 15 for the Crin podcast, and I now finished it at 45. But we digress.
Congratulations, I guess.
So Atelier Iris Eternal Mana gets thumbs down from Pure and a fond memory from Kalissa.
A neutral. I would say with the voice acting, the pretty 2D graphics, the cute story, the cute characters, I would say, if you have nothing else to play, give it a try. I don't think it's a great entry into the Atelier series, considering the fact it is so different from the current ones. But if it's your first time playing, it is a cute experience.
Yeah, it's a cute experience for a little bit. So, next time, we're going to do something completely different, much more modern, because we have been watching the awesome Witcher series on Netflix. So we're going to go back. We're going to play The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, which I absolutely adored. I played it through, beat it on PC years ago when it first came out. And we're going to play it again for the next podcast. You excited about that after seeing the show?
After seeing the show, yes. I'm one of those gamers that, especially playing an RPG, and I know it's a little complicated. A JRPG, I'm okay playing with a main male protagonist, because it's more like with a JRPG, you're watching the story, where a Western RPG, well, it's not even a Western RPG, is it?
It absolutely is.
The Witcher?
Yeah.
Wasn't it made from the studio?
Yeah, so when they refer to the West RPG, the West is Europe compared to the East of Asia.
Okay. But anyways, this is going to be my first RPG to play as a male protagonist. So we shall see.
It can't be your first Western RPG ever to do that.
I think it is. It might be.
Well, now you know a little bit more about the characters in the world. So I think you're going to really like it. It's just absolutely fantastic.
I take it back. I played Shadows of Mordor, but I had the fix where you played as a girl.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd call that an RPG, because you don't have that many story decisions.
More of an action adventure game. I don't know. I think we would have to go back to the wiki and look. I think it's very Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think it might count as an RPG.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
You don't?
I beat that game, played through it all the way, and I definitely don't think it's RPG. It has some RPG elements, but there's no agency in the story.
Okay.
In The Witcher, you're full of agency. So.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're going to play The Witcher, and again, my first playing as a male protagonist in an RPG, so I get to stare at Geralt's ass the whole 10 hours, I guess.
See, the funny thing is, it has so many great female characters. But we'll get into that next time. Thank you so much for listening to She Made Me Play. I, of course, am Pure Blue Octopus. Tweet me with how correct I am about Atelier and how correct I am about Champions of Crin being awesome.
And make sure to tweet her that she is totally wrong and crazy. And this is Kalissa Spirit. Thanks for listening, guys, and wish me luck. I know I'll enjoy it, so I guess it's not much luck. And, totally watch The Witcher on Netflix. It's been amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so awesome.
Catch you guys later.